Hello, welcome back to the L1 show. Today we're doing business and security links. We were not sure at first. We had all the categories mixed up. But
You'll
it's fine.
figure it out.
Yeah, you know what it is.
Wait, business?
Or not, it's government. Shoot, it's government.
We don't know what it is. But
I knew it was security, but I couldn't remember what the first part was.
We're here because things are on the precipice of a terrible cliff, but we're going to hold hands and we're going to get through it together.
We're going to all hold hands and then get pushed off by AI
Listen,
from the cliff.
we're going to keep doing this program even if we've got to do it on shortwave radio.
So the AI is going to replace us because there's enough training data of the program to know what to say.
that's what's the report of the week guy. You know, the weird guy on YouTube that does the fast food reviews. He has this shortwave radio program that he does, and he's got like millions of YouTube viewers. Nobody listens to shortwave radio, but he's like, I just love it. I'm actually doing it.
There's a ham radio club around here. Yeah. They always meet up in the park. Sometimes you can see them.
I bet that's a fun group of people to hang out with. Well, you know who's probably not fun to hang out with right now is the FCC officials, and I'm not even talking about the people making the decisions. I'm talking about the staff because they have some rules and they did not follow them.
The FCC officials
Every week now
owned stock in Comcast, Charter, AT&T, Verizon, and others. Watchdog says this might not be a problem. This might be a terrible problem. This is the Ajit Pai FCC, but it doesn't say if they own them directly or if they were part of an investment portfolio.
Either way, it shouldn't be allowed to happen. Now, one woman actually does own them directly, but she inherited it. But you should still be forced to sell that immediately.
Yeah, I would
Probably,
think.
yeah.
This is 2017 through 2019, I think, was when they were looking at.
Yeah, but it wasn't any of the names that we know. It was like supporting players, but you still have the ability to nudge things, I would think.
Yeah.
I'd give you a year. Like if you've got those stocks, inherited, it's like you got a year to get rid of them. That's probably reasonable. But like if you don't have any control, like if your retirement portfolio or your 401k is like, we invest in AT&T or Charter or whatever, that's different than owning it directly.
Sorry.
I mean, you should still have to get rid of it, but I could see how that would be an oversight of like, oh crap, I didn't mean to do that, but
Higher standard.
Yeah.
You work for the government. You're out.
At least it was only 35,000 at the higher end. I figured Ajit Pai would have millions of dollars of stock.
Well, he probably
he's
doesn't.
got other stuff.
He doesn't get his through the usual channels.
Yeah.
That's not how that works. Oh, okay.
And the FCC, we often accuse them of not doing enough. It just seems like, how did it take this long? How did they not do this previously?
I'm sure that we'll have people in the comments years later chiming in that this hasn't happened. The headline is the FCC has ordered phone companies to block scam text messages. But engagement challenge, have you gotten scam text messages? I don't care if this is 2035.
Well, no, but you'll still get them. This is not going to stop all of them. It's just they have, I guess, a list of numbers that are currently not being used. And you want to spoof those because nobody's going to notice, right? So somehow you can cross-check that. And then the stir shaking thing, they're going to expand it to like, there was some sort of loophole where the first party claimed they would stir shaken, and then they'd send to the second party who would then forward it on our soil. And they were like, no, everybody has to do it now.
Yeah. Remember the episodes, they started to crack down on this a little bit, and they actually dialed it back because people were getting calls from legit numbers that had been spoofed. And so you would get that angry voicemail that's like, why did you call me?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, I've tried to explain that to so many old women, and they're just furious.
Yeah.
It's like, stop calling out. I didn't call you. I tried to, I don't know why I engaged, but there was a woman at the Kroger in the airlock, and her cart had locked up with those dystopian new wheel lock things.
Oh, yeah.
And I tried to explain it to her, and she just shot me a look, was like, that's terrible. You shouldn't do that. And I was like, what?
I didn't design that system. Yeah.
I'm just telling, because she was like,
really struggling.
shaking it and looking at it. And I was like, no, that's never going to work.
oops.
Is that only, they don't let you take them out to the parking lot at all, or is that just the little carts?
It's false positive.
Oh, okay.
So when you go through the little scanny thing,
Yeah.
something happens there. They make some kind of decision, and it'll often stop you right there in the airlock.
Oh, okay.
And then it doesn't seem to notify anybody. She was just struggling for like a minute with it.
It's like a good way to upset your customers.
Such a bad system.
Like the FCC and their stock purchases. It's just I tried to buy this and the alarm bells went off and it let me anyway. I guess it's fine. No, it wasn't fine.
The pro tip, the proper thing to do if that happens to you, assuming you can carry all your stuff, which was a mini cart, so she could, you take all your stuff out of the car and kick it over. And if you're in the parking lot, leave it in the road.
If you've got any, spray paint, then you also spray paint on the wall to let Kroger know.
Sucks.
Yeah.
If you turn the cart over in the path of vehicles, that problem will be solved quickly.
Immediately, yeah. Hopefully with a lawsuit. Although then they would probably just go to the cameras and hold you responsible for it. Well, if anybody was left out there that was grasping on to the idea that lobbying doesn't work and doesn't return massive ROI, this should spoil that belief for you.
CNBC reports that Apple, Amazon, Google, etc. will likely get a reprieve from the GOP-controlled House on antitrust legislation. They're taking a pause, and they're not being quiet about letting everyone know they're taking a pause.
We're taking a pause, and we will hold on to this pause if you guys want to keep, giving us money.
I also wonder if a bit of this might be like, we can't do this to the economy right now. That could be really, really, really bad because we're kind of hanging on by a thread.
It really is amazing how dysfunctional everything is, because if this were something a little more serious, like, I don't know, lead or chemicals in the tap water, it's like, can we agree that it would be reasonable to look at that and try to reduce the amount of lead in the tap water? And it's like, no, we must grind everything to a halt, or we must proceed full speed ahead.
Kind of like putting dangerous chemicals on trains.
Yeah. It's like, there's no in the middle. There's no, can we have, I don't know.
Not tons of monopolies that end up causing a lot of those disasters.
And we've learned that the FBI is spying on us in every way possible, every legal way, a lot of illegal ways. And now they're purchasing data, or they had before. They claim they're not anymore. Who believes that? But if history has taught us anything, if you're in the position like the FBI is in, you need to not spy on lawmakers because they're actually the ones who can do something about it.
Congressman confronts FBI over quote-unquote egregious unlawful search of his personal data. This was Section 702. We reported on this when it happened. It took 3 years for it to come to a head.
Importantly, it's sunsetting,
Yeah.
or it could if they don't renew it. And he's arguing like, well, it's been abused. But there were so many that lined up behind him. I was like, well, yeah, this was an abuse, but we need it. The FBI's response was infuriating because they were like, well, immediately after this happened, we completely changed everything. So this doesn't count anymore. We would never do that again.
See, if you tried that, like, say if you stole a candy bar and then you're like, yeah, but I'm never going to do it again, I don't think that they would have a lot of mercy for you.
Well, remember also the NSA and the Wikimedia Foundation lawsuit. Remember the Wikimedia Foundation lawsuit about this same kind of thing?
And it was too secret.
Yeah, it's too secret. We can't talk about it.
But we do know about this one. And it will get renewed, which is just disgusting. Wow, look at these crypto prices. It's almost like the economy's in free fall. And speaking of crypto, the old TerraUSD issue, boy, that seems like a lifetime ago. How many crises ago was that?
The writers just keep throwing stuff at the wall to see what will stick.
But the Justice Department remembers.
The Justice Department investigating TerraUSD stablecoin collapse, according to reports. This is a stablecoin. How did it collapse? Is this fraud? What's going on with Do Kwon? Well, they've already charged Do Kwon with a crime. They're just trying to find more crimes.
They previously, the SEC did a civil lawsuit. So now we have the criminal counterpart. Should be a slam dunk. And the FBI is also giving us some statistics about online fraud. It is terrifying that so many people get caught up by the phone scams. Like, the reason that we keep getting those calls is not because the FCC isn't doing enough. It's because they work.
FBI says 10 billion lost to online fraud in 2022 as crypto investment scams surged.
A large amount of these two were also on senior citizens. I can't remember the number now. But
Well, I think it was monetarily, or maybe, no, it was, I can't remember the difference, but monetarily or volume, it was people in their 30s the most.
really?
but old people were the other one. I think the old people lost the most money.
Yeah.
But people in their 30s got scammed more often.
That's surprising to me.
Yeah, shocking.
A big part of these scams is that they use information from all of the data leaks when they call you, so it seems legit, like the Equifax leak and everything else. So when you get somebody on the other end, it's like, this is so and so from so and so bank. It's like, oh, I do business with bank. I need to verify your stuff, and it's like, well, can you verify who you are? And it's like, yeah, here's all your personal details, and it's like, oh yeah, this is legit, and it's like, no.
This is how paranoid I am. I got a real call from our real bank. My husband forgot to pay the mortgage by like a day, and they called and they were like, hey, do you want to make that payment over the phone? And I was like, no, never call me again. And I like slammed the phone down. My husband was like, I think that was the real bank because I forgot to do the auto pay.
Did you talk to the same person when you call back?
And we just paid it. We were like, oops.
But yeah, so call center fraud got the old people the most, but then there's this new one, this bank BEC scams where they get you to wire. Remember the one where they use the voice AI?
Yeah.
It's that kind of deal. Usually not that sophisticated, but they got the most. That was 2.7 billion from those bank scams. I would, if anybody asked me to wire them money.
So I was like, absolutely not. I don't want to talk to you.
Unless I'm making some huge purchase, internationally, why would I need to do that? And here's a fight that's been going on for a long time. I thought we would resolve this the other way, but I guess that was temporary, or this is an appeal or whatever. But now
Federal.
The pendulum has swung back in the other direction.
U.S. court rules Uber and Lyft workers are contractors. This was California. I guess it's a California case, but this is like one click up from the local court that said, no, they're not.
I don't know if it's federal. I think it's just that because California was the only thing holding them.
I think California had that special law, like the gig workers law, that did pass.
But they were the only ones.
Yeah.
So that was forcing them to do certain things globally.
Okay.
And now, no longer.
Yeah, a 3-judge panel at the appeals court ruled that workers could be treated as independent contractors.
So it seems like the gig workers are a little bit torn on this. I don't personally know a lot of gig workers but you wonder if some of those are shills or... I guess it is useful for some people, and then some people want the insurance and so forth.
Well, consider if you wrote an app that was just, you're going to get a rando.
This is going to be a call. This is going to be a
spam call. Yeah.
It's a scam.
Almost definitely a spam call.
If you get a call what was it? I forgot. It doesn't matter.
No, it does.
Uber.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Uber.
Uber. If there was an app and you was just, I'm willing to take a ride from a rando, and it's it's going to charge you 10 cents or 25 cents. That's a sustainable model for Uber and Lyft. But what they have now is not sustainable.
Until somebody gets raped or murdered, then that goes.
That
away
already
forever.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah, but they got a giant company to sort of like deal with that. You have to have that. I understand where you're going here, but this is not Star Trek. That kind of stuff will fail because humans are evil.
Well, when we're monitoring all people everywhere with their GPS locations and everything else by law, when you leave your house, is like you're under constant surveillance.
Let's be honest. Travel will not be tolerated at that point. You will stay inside your home node.
Your little band will start shocking you if you step outside of your pod.
How insane will that be if that's a perk of Amazon? It's like, be an Amazon worker and enjoy being able to deliver packages. Do not interact with other human beings.
You get to go to the sky world.
Need vitamin D? Just deliver these 5 packages, and then you can stand outside for 15 minutes uninterrupted. And, we have a problem with hacking and all sorts of data being lost. And some might argue that the way to avoid that is to stop giving these companies data in the first place that they don't need. Don't let them require it. But the government has some other ideas.
Wall Street Regulator proposes new hacking and data market resiliency rules. So these are harsher punishments when something like Equifax, when something like Equifax happens and the hack is, really catastrophic for a lot of people. There would be severe penalties, but they don't care.
That never happens.
You might have just mistakenly started a brand new scheme of data theft, horse data theft.
Oops.
And the Biden administration has kind of the same idea, and they want to do a lot to try and protect the online world. not necessarily all businesses, although the cloud infrastructure is all business. It's not like we have any like public land in the cloud.
Biden admins cloud security problem. It could take down the internet like a stack of dominoes. In a nutshell, the federal government is noticing, hey, there's a lot of stuff hosted in Amazon. That's going to make a tempting target for foreign adversaries. And Google and Microsoft, but mostly Amazon.
I will say this with total confidence. There is a 0% chance that Joe Biden understands cloud computing.
I'd say that's probably true of most people in government.
I was, reading the actual reports from the people in the government. It almost reads like it's in some parallel universe. Probably not this one, but maybe this one. What if the scenario was the NSA had such an easy time getting inside of Google and everything else that Snowden is like the ultimate, double reverse spy. So he outed himself as part of a larger operation to get the cloud providers to actually strengthen their internal security by demonstrating how easy it was to compromise them. Because that really did get the ball rolling on making cloud security stuff better internally, but it's still pretty bad.
I don't think the government cares at all about our privacy. I think they care about the economy breaking down, because if the cloud stops, the statistics of like, if the internet goes down, Amazon's losing so much a second.
Well,
Right.
So far, Snowden will have done more for that than any, like, even if they implement all the plans proposed in this, Snowden will have accomplished more in terms of hardening cloud providers than any of those proposals. Because Google, the dudes inside Google, when the Snowden thing happened, they looked around and they said, oh, that's impossible. In order for the NSA to be inside our data centers, they would have had to tap the fiber. There would be evidence of that. If I go over here to this closet and I open it, oh, no. Oh,
They're in.
oh, there it is. Oh. So they've made some changes internally to deal with that, which is good.
Well, we do have to worry about the economy. It does seem to be on the precipice. And you have to ask yourself at times like this, when money is a little thin, do we really need to be spending $2.5 billion on this?
Government opens a $2.5 billion fund for EV chargers in rural and underserved areas.
They left a word out there, didn't they?
They did.
That's a terrible headline. So, yeah, I mean, if you live in a rural place, like we do, not a lot of EV chargers.
No.
And
There's a few. But
especially when you get away from here, not a lot of EV chargers. So they say that they're going to try to do this in places like that. But, I mean, if you build them and nobody cares, it seems like there's going to be a lot of waste there.
Car dealerships could already get money for adding them.
That's a long way to go, though.
Yeah.
Like if I have to drive to the car dealership to charge my car. And government website contracts. You got to question why I went to this company in the first place.
yeah.
And also, there's a lot of denial here, but I don't know. Krista, you're a big national park person. You ever use this website?
I have before. I don't have to use it very often because around here, like, it's kind of a lawless wasteland. Most of it's just public and you can
why
go
we love
camp
it.
wherever you want. But for larger parks like the Smokies, you have to reserve a campsite or get a permit and you have to use this website.
And like all other interactions that you have with website these days, there's some hidden terms of services and some hidden fees.
Recreation.Gov. If you use that, you want to pay attention. Booz Allen Hamilton seeks dismissal of Recreation.Gov lawsuit because they run the website. And there's fees that are charged on the website. So there's a lawsuit that says, hey, Booz, what are you charging all these fees for? We don't need these fees.
And a lot of the fees they don't think anyway, are not going to the actual upkeep of the parks. They don't go to the different recreation areas. They just disappear, presumably into their pocket.
Booz Allen says not true. Booz Allen says the government sets all of those prices and all of that money goes to the government. We're only paid our contract fees for building and maintaining the site. But then some other whistleblower was like, that's absolutely untrue. The money goes into a fund and it eventually makes its way back in through like bonus payments.
It's easy enough to Freedom of Information Act, the actual agreement. That is not considered sensitive information. It would be easy enough to get that. So the clock is running on what is actually going on here. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lawsuit. So
Yeah,
we'll
so
get to
this
discover.
is the last update on it, I think was like Wednesday or Thursday. So that was like a day before we started filming, but we'll keep an eye on that.
In the meantime, be careful when you go camping.
You should always be careful when you go camping.
You might accidentally give Booz Allen Hamilton $15.
Now, this is a follow up to a story we did about there was a girl who did a graphic novel. She used AI to generate the script, the images, and then she laid out the images by hand. And she was told by the Copyright Office that images cannot be copywritten, but the layout can, because you did that part. But now they've looked at that possible edge case and they've made some rules.
Authors risk losing copyright if AI content is not disclosed, U.S. guidance says. So the Copyright Office says, hey, sure, you can file whatever. Just put that it was generated with AI in the thing and we'll figure it out later. Basically is what they're saying.
And if you don't do that, even in the case where, yes, she put some work in the future, if you don't tell them, hey, these images came from AI, then you could just lose everything.
Text will be that way too. I mean, it's just going to be a torrent of word I can't say because YouTube will demonetize us. We have a story about that later.
We probably can't say torrent either.
Oh, shoot.
Deluge. Deluge, Griffith. And moving over to the Euro news, Amazon got some real bad news.
Amazon slams a $265 million tax order as it seeks to get EU appeal thrown out. This is Reuters. The Reuters, actually, I think some of the paywall alternative versions of this article are more interesting. And we've got another version of this story in the business section, I think. But what the lawyer that was working on this described it as, he had a wonderful description for the business machinery that Amazon put in place. Like, they created tons of like shell companies to categorize the expenses and just do all of this stuff to avoid taxation in the EU. And in the EU case, in discovery, it was like, why did you do this? Did this make more sense for, organizing the engineers or the teams working on this or whatever? It's like, no, it was totally about tax minimization. And it's like, well, apparently you can't do that under EU rules.
It's not that much for them.
Yeah.
They're fine. And also in the UK, they have, I guess they have chosen a side in the US-China war. I think a lot of countries are going to be doing this same thing going forward.
1,100 scientists and students barred from the UK amid China crackdown. So these are records of academics and others that have, they say, questionable stuff on their security record.
Usually it's like they've worked with the Chinese military in some capacity.
But we've seen it both ways. We've seen people who've gotten, well, in the US at least, we've seen people accused of this who were like, no, I'm just doing research. And then we saw people who were in the companies through that pathway, siphoning stuff back to China. So maybe you should be. They also claim, the UK claims that yes, we are banning a lot more, but we've expanded the program and our ban number remains at 2%.
Yeah, it's like 1,000 out of 50,000 candidates.
Whereas before it was much less.
Yeah.
It's also true that at least here in the States, we've gotten it embarrassingly wrong for at least a couple of academics. Like, it was, they went to the institution and said, this person is, red hot, don't do anything. And then there was a lawsuit of discovery and everything came out in the lawsuit. And they were actually probably the victims of circumstance. Because then they walked it back.
Is that a risk we're taking?
As an academic, no. I mean, it's just like somebody just moved here and wants a job. I don't know. I mean, it's something to be afraid of, I guess.
There's so many things to be afraid of.
And in the EU, we've got, the budget crisis is hitting them as well. Of course, we got the big France story that's going on right now. And the UK, and they're saying that they need to figure out how to get people. One of the big problems the UK has is the labor rate. A lot of people aren't working. A lot of them are old and they're retired. And they're saying, how can we get old and young people back into the wage slavery?
The BBC headline is Jeremy Hunt insists plans will get people back to work. So this is to do with, I guess, if you have £1 million in your pension, you can't add any more to your pension, or what more you add ends up being taxed at a crazy rate. So by the time you do actually retire, you'll have this huge balloon payment. And there are a lot of people that are about 50 years old that could go ahead and retire that have reached that £1 million mark, I guess.
Yeah, and so a lot of them did go on and retire, and they're like, no. Please do not retire.
And this is the most disgusting part. You only get that if you're old Because if you're young, what you get instead is free childcare. What if you don't have any children?
And the funny thing about this too is like, we'll remove all of these, tax burdens and stuff immediately, but it'll take us a while to do the actual child credit. So it's like, well, then it just benefits the old rich people, right?
I don't know if £1 million in your retirement account is really rich.
Rich, I guess, yeah.
Because it's like, that doesn't go as far as it used to.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially with like medical stuff.
Well, they got universal health care.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I mean,
We don't have that.
there's going to be arguments in the comments about how effective it is, but they don't
Yeah.
have it. And this one, I thought this had already happened,
Yeah.
but apparently those were just like, we're going to do it, but now we've finally done it.
UK bans TikTok on government devices over security concerns. This is an outright ban everywhere. I guess it was not just members of parliament in the House before, maybe, or sensitive positions. Now it's literally everywhere.
It's weird that, like, your government-provided devices, you're allowed to put anything personal on it.
Well, so some of the people they interviewed were like, yeah, I'm going to get my own phone now because of this. And it was like, well, yeah, you probably should have done that anyway.
Yeah, why would you want to cross that?
Man, if only we had the ability to run virtual machines or sandboxes on our phones in order to compartmentalize things. That would be good for security too. You could sandbox an application and prevent it from stealing your data, a la Meta or oh wait, we already have that capability. It's just no one wants to build it.
I don't know, though. You get compromised on like a bootloader or something.
Yeah. That's something.
Let's just have them have different ones.
Yeah.
Plus, let's make their public phones, like, you don't get to choose what it is. It gets assigned to you, and they all have to be an embarrassing color. So when you see them out in public, you can target them.
They're the Razor, the pink Razor phones.
And they all have to use a really embarrassing ringtone.
Yeah.
It's the basic government ringtone. It's just burn, burn. And it's like, oh, that's my government phone. Hang on.
My old boss had like a very distinct ringtone, and like it was always going off, like his text tone and stuff. And eventually, if I heard that out in public elsewhere, I'd be like, because I knew it's like I had that association with my old boss.
And the Dutch, they've discovered something, and this is going to shock you. This is the the level 1 warning to sit down before we tell you this.
Dutch court finds Facebook misused data in a class action lawsuit.
Not Facebook.
No way.
That doesn't sound like them.
Yeah, they definitely did. And they're going to have to pay a little bit for that. We've seen that a couple of times before.
This story,
It was hard to parse.
it was very hard to parse. I tried, but oh my gosh.
I find that with a lot of these India-Pakistan stories. I don't know if it's the way the languages work or whatever, but I have a hard time figuring out what's going on.
Well, there's a lot of names, and then like there's a lot of back and forth in this story as well.
And this one, the plaintiff and the defendant were actually the same company name.
Oh, what?
It's very confusing. So, but this is one of the things that we're constantly pointing out is DMCA. There is no recourse for DMCA. You get hit with the DMCA, you can do the counterclaim, but it's pointless. There's
It
never going
goes
to work.
through, yeah.
So they can be used offensively, and they can be used illegally, even though there's no law against it. So people just do it.
High Court bans singer from hitting YouTube rival with the DMCA notices. This came to a head in the UK because one rival was taking down videos and lyrics and stuff from the other, but they both had rights to some of the material.
So it seems to me like the artist sold their catalog. Then the company that bought the catalog sold the catalog. So now a third party or fourth party has the catalog, puts it on YouTube on their YouTube channel. The artist says, no, you can't do that. And they're like, yeah, of course we can. We bought this. So the artist starts their own YouTube channel, uploads the music again, and starts hitting them with claims. And then the claims just start going back and forth to the point where the big channel gets completely knocked out by a strike. They appeal it. And the ultimate fallout of all this is the artist is no longer allowed to issue DMCA against this entity.
Ah!
Seems like maybe it's just a bad way of doing that. And Rishi Sunak, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I've still never heard the man's name spoken by another human being. he is, a lot of people might not know this outside of the UK. I imagine the UK people know this. He is a insanely rich man and an heir. He's not a self-made man.
That's very common, I think, in the UK. Like, there's a much stricter class divide.
But I think his dad's from, or his family's from India, right?
Oh, I'm not sure.
They have that, what's their business?
But like, if you're rich in the UK, chances are you inherited it.
Oh, no, his dad has a huge business in India doing like big data, like personal tracking and selling information and stuff, which is what everybody was like, he's obviously going to be making us do that, right? Because he's got an interest in it. Anyway, very rich man, bought a house, wanted to do some improvements, and maybe that was against the rules a little bit, but they claim no foul play here. I don't know.
Rishi Sunak has electricity grid upgraded to heat his private pool. PM will pick up the cost of the upgrade work in North Yorkshire, and no suggestion that he received preferential treatment.
But I mean, okay, let's say that's all true. Let's say he paid for that all out of pocket. Isn't it a terrible optic when everyone's struggling with like energy costs and food costs to be like, I upgraded this whole thing not for you guys, but for my private pool.
But not only that, then we have the other story about the 8K TVs.
Yeah.
You can't have an 8K TV unless you have this really restrictive eco mode out of the box because they have rules about wasting power.
Yeah, this just seems...
we're heating a pool.
Seems like we could do that with solar. Like, that would
Can
actually
you even use a pool for like half the year in the UK? It's like very cold and misty.
I mean, the
there.
sun doesn't shine in the UK, so no, we can't use solar.
No, we do. What? It shines enough.
He needs a gator room like what they have in Florida, where it's like the greenhouse around the pool.
And that using the sunlight to directly heat copper pipe filled with water has got to be one of the most efficient things you could possibly do with that solar energy.
I think what he needs is to not be in charge. And the French might be enjoying their own not in charge anymore if things continue down this path.
Protests erupt in France over Macron's push to raise retirement age. So if you went to college, the retirement age is now 67. If you went to work right out of high school, it's 64. It's a 2-year increase, something like that.
This says...
I really want you to work till you're dead, huh?
This says it was posted an hour ago. That's definitely not true, but I also don't see an update.
We deleted that one. We don't want to talk about it.
I do love like the meme where the French will just riot over anything. I mean, this one I think is worth it, but
it failed the vote, but it was close, so the president can push it through, which he did. But now they can do a no confidence vote, which would fire everybody.
I thought he didn't even let it get to the vote.
Did he? Or the thing that I read said that they didn't have enough votes to pass it, so he pushed it through.
Right, but they didn't actually take a vote because, you know, it's like our Congress, you know, like they backroom deal until they're sure they've got everybody on board. Then they trigger the vote. Well, I don't think he ever did the vote. He was just like, there's no way I can get this vote. So let me just do the executive order type deal.
Yeah. It does seem unfortunate that we're contemplating things like 4-day work weeks, but also raising the retirement age. That's definitely kind of a mixed message, don't you think?
You will work until you're dead, until we no longer need your body.
I don't know if it was this or the paywall alternative, but sometimes I'll check out the comments on this story, and there was one of them that was originally in French that was translated by Google Translate. So I don't know how good the translation is, but it said, it's like, I'm 61 and I don't think that affects that person for some reason or something. But they said, my class reunion is coming up and I was looking around and 25% of my class has died.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just the beginning of it's like, I'm just now entering my 60s and I feel fine. But I'd kind of like to enjoy retirement, or I kind of get that, it's like, hey, if 25% of my class has already died,
Yep, that's a concern. Possibly the bigger concern right now in the world, other than the stock markets collapsing, is World War III. And if there's one place that World War III is going to start, it's going to be a little island in Asia.
TSMC founder says he supports the U.S. effort to slow China's chip advances.
Well, of course he does.
This is in Reuters. Like, yes.
He also just made a huge deal with us. Of course he supports that.
Water
is wet.
And he needs protection.
Yeah.
But yeah, China's not going to like this.
No.
It's gonna poke the bear a little bit more.
Oh no. Oh, there it
It's
goes.
doing the memory saving thing.
If we could please hold off on global thermonuclear war until after Computex, that would be amazing.
Oh, I'm so excited you get to go back this year.
I am too. I like Taiwan very much.
You think it'd be hard to source a proper diet over there?
Yes.
You think?
Yeah.
I think Asian food, there's a lot of it that's vegetarian.
No, they're super into all the seafood and stuff.
Oh, I guess they're an island nation. I guess that makes
Plus, if you're getting something fancy in like a hotel or something, there's a high chance there's going to be some fats in there
Yeah.
that you don't know about.
Yeah.
that the language barrier might be difficult too. Like, I'm not vegetarian for ethical reasons. I'm vegetarian because I will be violently ill.
I can't have the protein.
Let's be clear. I hate animals.
Let's be clear. Animals are tasty.
And, you know, probably should have pushed these two stories. Oh, I couldn't have because, well, I could have moved them, friends. This is the Asian section. But South Korea doing kind of a similar thing to France, moving the granularity a little bit. But my God, they were already a little bit extreme, and this just went crazy.
South Korea U-turns on 69-hour work week after youth backlash. That makes sense.
Yeah,
That's 9 a.m. to midnight.
Yeah.
I would kill someone.
That's you're taking all of your meals at work, and when you go home, you just collapse. What else could you do?
Yeah. I mean, and that already kind of unofficially exists in some cases, but like, imagine codifying that, encouraging it.
It didn't go through. People put their foot down.
Yeah.
But this is going to be one of those situations where they're like, all right, you know what? Well, let's just do 59.
Yeah.
Currently 52, not even 40.
Yeah.
And time and time again, I'm so impressed by how India handles big tech companies. Every time they do something like this, you just sit there with your mouth agape like, how are we not doing this? Why didn't we just do this? Of course, we have the power to do this.
This is Reuters. India plans new security testing for smartphones and a crackdown on pre-installed applications. They looked around and they looked at phones and they said, wow, there's a lot of crap on these phones. But it turns out there's a lot of phones that are subsidized, quote unquote, with basically malware. It'll steal from you. It'll do microtransactions. And so they've said, enough is enough. We're gonna do away with this. Now, some of it is not from Google. Like we're annoyed with Samsung preloading applications that are garbage.
Verizon.
And carriers, AT&T, T-Mobile. And that's a problem for them as well. But in India, it's also more of a problem that the local bodega that's going to sell you an Android phone has also put crap on it.
Or a lot of their phones come from China.
Yeah. See, the aforementioned there's a subsidy for this. Subsidy.
And China, good news, Xi Jinping has started his third record-breaking term as the leader of
First
China.
thing I thought you were going to say trimester, and I was like, oh, is he pregnant?
He's having a little baby poo.
Yeah.
So they made some other rules and they made some announcements during their big, I don't know what they call it, some kind of, Congress that they put together. And it's interesting because China is looking at the rest of the world and they're like, God, look at all the money that big data is bringing in, all the revenue it's generating. But we kind of control big data in this country. We're not making any money off of it.
China to set up new bureau to mine data for economic growth. Details on China's new National Data Administration are still to come, including how much of it will have over data security and privacy.
There was a term used in this article called digital China, like a proper noun, and I was like, ooh, that feels...
I read this a little with a different, like the MIT Technology Review is mostly pretty positive about this, but there was somewhere that had a different take on this that was, this is meant to turn into a vast data repository for data collected by any means. So it could include things like foreign economic espionage, like, hey, we're setting up a thing to make lumber. How does Lowe's handle lumber? How does 84 Lumber handle lumber? How does Home Depot handle lumber? And you could just go look at it in the database and it's like, we're going to build, a Chinese lumber store and it's going to be based on the best of all of these. And it's like, well, okay, that's not how that's done really, but okay.
But think about this. How much our horrible government agencies have learned how much more efficient it is to buy the data from data companies who are already taking care of it, and they'll let you search and just pick what subset you want. So China, imagine how much effort and energy and money the CCP spends on stealing everybody's data. So now how much easier Plus, you generate GDP by letting the private sector steal everybody's data. And then when you need it, and they won't even buy it. You know, they'll just be like, yeah, send us that.
So you think they're looking at the guy that was caught with a room full of gold bars, and it's like, how did this, regional manager end up with a room full of gold bars? And it's like, well, he wasn't flagged in the database. How was he not flagged in the database?
Oh, the other thing, because last week we figured out that the FBI had done that. Yeah, we know the NSA has done it. And I couldn't find a mainstream media source. Imagine that. But some people are claiming that the CDC was purchasing data to make sure we were staying in our homes.
Actually, we did a story on that. And it was like 3 weeks into the thing. And it was like, the CDC wouldn't do that, would they? And it was like, yeah, they probably did. There was no follow-up from that, though.
Well, somebody's blowing a whistle on it now.
I'm just feeling like it's just a cultural difference here where, like, the USA prefers to outsource all their dirty work, to these private companies, whereas China likes to be a little more hands-on.
But now they're saying, like, we're probably wasting resources being so hands-on. Let's let the companies do it. Yeah. And then we'll just take it from them when we need it. I mean, that's a smart plan.
It's the American way.
Imagine how much data Amazon has on you. And it's like, we don't need to redouble efforts. We can just go get Amazon's data.
And they have such control of the companies themselves. In order to get one of those, what do they call it, where you get the certificate, the mark or whatever? In order to get those, you'll have to agree anytime we need data.
Yeah.
We get it. And New York is the only state in the union that has a rule about having to tell people about facial recognition cameras observing you. So if you walk into a store, there has to be something letting you know, hey, there's cameras in here. They got facial recognition. Amazon said, we don't care about that.
Amazon sued for not telling New York store customers about facial recognition. The picture is for an Amazon Go store. Remember last week we learned they were closing 35 of them?
Because people just walk out and they don't actually have an account.
They might have seen this lawsuit before the headlines did. That might have factored into that.
They should disclose it, but I do kind of feel like if you're someone who wants to use that service, I don't understand how you could not understand how that works.
Yeah.
But
I thought that was magic.
Yeah, it has to know somehow.
And this is terrifying because this has to do with, like, how do these people carry off these amazing scams? Well, sometimes they impersonate people that you might really be afraid to ignore. And nothing's being done to stop that. But we do find out much later when it happens.
Krebs on Security has 2 U.S. men charged in the 2022 hacking of a DEA portal. I think we reported on this. This is they finally found the dudes, and yeah.
So these guys were using DEA resources and DEA email addresses and stuff and trying to attack people with that. It's like, I'll destroy your life if you don't help me or give me your money or whatever. So you would think that they would have good security there, but no.
Turns out the answer is no. And speaking of bad security in 2022,
it's terrible.
It's as dark. They explain here that apparently as ransomware is drying up, we still have a lot of ransomwareers. How would you say that? Ransomwareians. And now there's less and less money to go around, so they're getting more and more evil.
Ransomware attacks have entered a heinous new phase. The Ars Technica article talks about a lot of generalities and how much more money there was to be made with ransomware, and that it's actually down. So, like, the amount of money that can be collected.
Well, and people just aren't paying it anymore because they're like, it doesn't help to pay it.
And so in one case, and then the article sort of says, okay, let's look at one specific thing that happened. And it was the ransomware people got into a portal for cancer patients. And so there's all kinds of pictures of cancer patients tracking the progression and treatment of cancer. So you're at your most vulnerable stage. You're probably naked, possibly naked.
Oh, yeah. A lot of them were breast cancer.
Surgery, post surgery, this kind of thing. Very, intimate and not very just. And so the ransomware people are saying, okay, you won't pay. We're going to release all of this to the internet, which is very, it's like.
There's also like, I can't say the word, I guess, but like assault cases as well, and photos and documentation for that got released. And it's
from
like,
a school.
Yeah.
So they got the school records, and the school records had people reporting crimes that were happening to the students.
I mean, if it worked this way and we could release, the nuclear codes by popular vote, I would be all about releasing some codes for the tactical nukes at least. It's like, oh, we're 100% sure it's coming from these coordinates. It's like, well, when's the polling place open up so that I can go vote on the use of a tactical nuke?
I don't know about that plan.
Yeah. Anyway, those people are terrible. They should be destroyed.
And these people are terrible. My God, this should be the death penalty.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, come on.
People were unwittingly implanted with fake devices in medical scan, the FBI has alleged.
So StemWave was this little rod that they would put in you, and it was supposed to stimulate your nerves with an external power source, like the phantom power. And the feedback they got on it was, hey, these rods are too big. We can't fit them into our smaller patients. And they're like, don't worry, we've got a smaller one. And the new one, it's amazing. You can actually cut it down to whatever size you want. Just insert whatever size you want into the people. The reason it could do that is there was nothing inside of it. It was just plastic.
Ugh. Macroplastics.
$16,000. Yeah, and most of that was Medicare. So
Wow.
we paid for that. And those people are running around with plastic in their bodies. Here's the question. Do you go through surgery again to get it out, or do you just live with it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh, you'll have to. And is
yeah, you can
Medicare
get it
going to pay
out.
for that?
It will, but only after, going to court with them for 5 years.
Complication.
One thing I wasn't able to glean from the article is like, did the first one even work? Or was this pure Theranos magic?
Theranos magic, probably.
Probably, yeah.
And I've not seen Ant-Man and the Wasp. I've heard it's kind of garbage.
I haven't seen it.
I mean, it's a Marvel movie.
People are really losing interest. But there is a hardcore group of fans who are super interested in it, perhaps too interested.
Marvel demands Reddit expose Redditors behind the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania script leak.
It leaked like a month before the movie came out.
Now, here's the crazy thing about this. And this goes back to the whole, like, when is data and when is it just a link? What's a pointer and what's the actual data? Because there's a word limit on Reddit. So they couldn't post the whole thing. They went to Google Drive,
Oh.
made themselves a little Google Doc, shared the link on Reddit. But they insist, the Marvel lawyers insist that it doesn't matter. It's still wrong and they must expose the user.
What if they got it from a Discord chat?
It's another layer, right?
Disney will have its piece of flesh.
The mouse doesn't care.
Yeah.
The mouse will chase this lead or you are responsible.
I do love
Okay.
reading leaks.
I bet some of this is motivated by, like the next time they're in front of their shareholders, they're like, well, Ant-Man was going to do great, but then the leak happened. It was totally a good movie, though.
It seems like a PR stunt, honestly.
It probably might be. I feel like if your story is good, even if you know the ending, like knowing it ahead of time doesn't ruin it.
Also, like, how many people were going to watch the movie and then they're like, oh, I can't help myself. I have to spoil it. Now I won't watch the movie. Those people are going to watch the movie anyway.
Right.
If you're on the Marvel subreddit, you're not going to watch the movie? Come on.
I didn't know a thing in the world about The Matrix when I went to see The Matrix. Nothing. And I wasn't even really excited about it because I was like, Keanu Reeves?
I love movie experiences like that.
Yeah. It turned out. It was good. It was really good.
And once again, Keanu Reeves, maybe there's something magic about him.
Yeah.
John Wick, for years I was like, John Wick, that's another comic book movie. I'm not interested in that. And then I watched it and I was like, this is the greatest movie that's ever existed. How?
Did you like the sequels? There's a couple now, right? The sequels aren't as good.
2 was middling, 3 was terrible. But now that 4 is like this year, right?
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not hyped for that. Just go back and watch the original over and over.
It's like me in Star Trek The Next Generation.
It's a comfort show.
There's all
And
this new stuff happening. I don't know what that is. Don't
Yeah.
care.
personally, I like to skip past the dog part because it's so sad.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
go right to the murder. Well, Discord just completely won the video game chat app wars.
Oh,
Yeah.
Everybody uses Discord, and now we're in this hellscape where every new project, every new game, every new entity that exists,
Just anything,
it
yeah.
has to have its own Discord. Now, we've had some security scares from Discord in the past, and they're always like, no, that was a mistake. We would never do that.
They absolutely do it.
Discord promises outraged users it won't store the call recordings for now. Discord staff promises shocked Redditors, we are going to fix this.
They're not.
So it was, we don't have any proof that they're doing this, but it was the terms of service.
Yeah.
The terms of service explicitly said they would not do it. And then, much like those warrant canaries,
It disappeared.
that piece is gone.
Yeah. It would be an incredible AI training data set, which probably somebody said, oh, we should do that.
I will say, so I have a friend who recently had her first child, and we talked on Discord about it. And right after that conversation happened about, congratulations on the baby, blah, 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 I was checking out Facebook Marketplace, and it was nothing but breast pumps
Was it,
in the advertising section on there.
you talking about voice chat?
No, but it was
Text
just
chat.
text chat.
Oh,
yeah.
that's much easier for
Oh,
you.
yeah. So I assume everything that's on Discord gets leaked.
Now, they have put the wording back in for now. But, it's like one of those things where we're going to have to watch that.
There's probably a star, really tiny. It's actually, we're not doing this, but we put this back in here just to fool you.
And finally, the supply chain attacks. How do we guard against them? There's a lot of different ways to guard against them because there's so many different supply chains, unfortunately. This one, may be good, maybe not. Time will tell.
JavaScript supply chain. What? The NPM registry safe word is socket. GitHub's JavaScript failings are someone else's opportunity. So this is an article about using, Microsoft acquired NPM, and they're not really doing a lot as far as security goes. And this is an article about wrapping everything with a security layer, a security blanket, if you will.
It checks a variety of things to try to make sure that, nothing is out of place. Checks against typos, because that's one of the big things they do is if you get one letter wrong, there's another package with that's just nothing but malware. So it tries to check that against what the other stuff that you're running and so forth. Probably not a bad thing to do. I don't know if it'll be a magic bullet.
It's a constant race now.
Now and forevermore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been government security.
We will see you guys on Wednesday.